Alaikum. Hello, everyone. I'm Sabine Bilal from Creative Kinder House, and I have Katie and Lauren with me from EBCS for our third episode of our parent webinars. Hi, guys.
Hi guys, good morning or afternoon. It's a different time everywhere.
Yes.
All right, so welcome back, you guys. We're super excited to be able to continue to do this. As always, at the end, let us know and contact us if there are any specific areas that you want us to target or anything you're really struggling with, and then we can pick a topic from there. But today, something super important. Functions of behavior and reinforcement. These two things are key in understanding all behavior. So we start here, and this is kind of vast and broad. So we can do more episodes on specific examples or just an episode of all examples in the future. So let us know. But today we're going to go over the 4 functions of behavior and reinforcement. Also, I am Katie Lyford. I'm a VCBA. I work primarily in public schools for evidence-based classroom solutions.
I'm Lauren Ross. I'm a speech therapist, BCBA, working primarily in schools as well with evidence-based classroom solutions.
And you know Sabine, the founder and director of Creative Kinder House. And again, we're so excited to get to collaborate with such a cool place. So, all right, we will get started.
So when we're talking about reinforcement, it's really imperative to look at the 4 functions of behavior. So the first function of behavior is attention. So when we say that this is the function, it means this is the purpose that's driving the behavior, the reason the behavior is occurring. So if it's for attention, which a lot of behaviors that we see in our kids definitely are, the child is seeking our attention. So that might look like raising their hand or walking over and give you a hug, but that also might look like yelling and screaming and laying on the ground, because that's how they're getting attention. So attention can be sought in many ways. It's not always hugging, it's not always yelling. It can be definitely all the realms in between. After attention, there's avoidance or escape. And when we think of this, I often think of public schools.
Yes.
That's when we see a lot of avoidance and escape. I don't know about you guys.
Absolutely. We're constantly seeing kids trying to get out of things, right? And you might see that at home as well. Like, it's time to clean your room. They might find other things to do to get away with not cleaning their room. And so we'll get into some examples soon.
So with avoidance, we're trying to get away from the current task. So whether that is at school in a work assignment or at home in eating a vegetable they don't want to eat. This is them trying to remove themselves from that situation to avoid or escape something that is happening.
Absolutely.
Now, the third one is often, I feel like, linked to our favorite technology devices, iPads.
Right. Yeah. I love having access to my phone, right?
Exactly. As adults, this is what we do all the time when we're like frantically searching through our purse, or searching the house. So we are trying to get access to something. So the function of behavior is attaining it, working with it. So for our children, this could be a favorite toy in the house. This could be watching TV, going outside to do something and access that. It doesn't always, it can be like an activity like going outside, accessing that, as well as just something as simple as a phone or a toy that they want. And the last one is automatic. So this is when we look at something that does not require another person to be there. It's something that happens for that person is able to control themselves and they're able to do without others. So oftentimes this is linked to stemming. So when we see hand flapping behavior or any of those stereotypical stemming behaviors, this is automatic. So they're able to do this by themselves. Your presence does not increase it or negate it. It is something they're doing for themselves.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren, for mapping that out. I think it's important to kind of touch on. So if you can take one behavior. So let's say you've got a child who's he's sitting in his chair in his room, but he's just like scripting out like an entire, like his favorite episode of a show or a song. He's singing a song that he loves all the time, right? It could be a variety of functions of behavior, right? So it's up to us to kind of figure out what the function is, because we can't change the behavior without understanding the why. The function of behavior is figuring out that why. Why is he doing that? You know, it's something we ask ourselves when we see a kid doing something we don't like. We're like, oh my, why? Why, right? These are the whys. It's really powerful once you understand these. It seems really simple, but you know, there's only 4. So anything we do is for one of these, it serves one of these functions. It serves one of these purposes. So for the example about a kid singing in his chair, like scripting out the thing, it could be attention, right? It could be to get access to attention, because as soon as he does that, mom comes in running in. It's like, can you please not do that? You know, and then just interacts with him. So he successfully got attention. And we'll break down reinforcement in just a second. That goes right along with this. But it could be automatic. Maybe it doesn't require another person. Maybe that child is getting reinforced by doing that without the attention of anyone else, or without any access to an iPad, or without avoiding or getting out of something. He's just sitting there and loving this song or this show, and is just loudly kind of going at it, right? So it's important to know which one. It's going to determine how we approach it, right? It's going to determine what we do.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, so does a lot of parents come to us, and does every behavior have a function? Because often parents come and they're exasperated and they say, I don't know why my child is doing this. Like, it appears that the child is doing something for no
out of nowhere, right?
Yes,
we hear that
not to say that, Katie. That they're doing this and it just happens out of nowhere and we have no idea why.
And it, you know, to be fair, sometimes it's a little tricky to figure it out. It is. And sometimes we're wrong, but we can do things to figure out what is the actual function of behavior, right? But it's a beautiful question, Sabine, and the answer is yes, there is always a function. It's one of these 4 things. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but it's true. Like, if you start really breaking down, like, any behavior, it has one of these functions, I swear. So, yeah, we'll go into our next slide and we'll break it down. So here's our ABCs of behavior. And again, we can go, you'll see this again. We'll review this in webinars to come. But whenever I talk to a parent or talk to a teacher, I don't know about you, Lauren, but this is one of the first things that I do, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, whether it's writing down or just breaking it down and saying, okay, what happens first? What is the behavior and what's the consequence?
Right.
So it's very important to break down, and it helps us determine what the function of behavior is.
Exactly. And so this is like a data collection process that we use, but you don't have to like collect data to do this, really. You can just have it in your head. So if you look at the ABCs, the A, which is 1, we have antecedent. And what is that, Lauren? What's number 1? What do we have?
Antecedent is the event that can occur before a behavior. So if we look at this, maybe it is you saying it's time for dinner, and then something happens, whether that is the child running to wash their hands before dinner, or the child saying, no, I don't want to stop playing.
Yeah, the antecedent might be me as a parent saying, go clean up your room, right? Like it's happening before whatever the behavior is either going to be they're going to clean their room, or a variety of other things.
And the antecedent doesn't always have to be a verbal prompt. It can be as simple as your cell phone alarm going off and say, oh, it's time to head out, we need to go catch the bus so we can go here. Or it can be just something as simple as they see something and they know that, oh, this is what happens before we see this. And so it can just be a visual prompt, a voice prompt, or an audible prompt in our environment.
Exactly. And then we've got our behavior. And so that's really what we're looking at, right? And that's what you see as a parent and as teachers, if you work with kids, you see behavior and you're like, I don't understand. What is this? What is the function? What's happening? So that number 2, I usually pinpoint this first. And then you're like, okay, what happened right before? What is the antecedent?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I did ask him to clean up his room, or my alarm did go off, right? And the behavior is either getting up or hitting snooze, right? So what is the behavior? And it's got to be observable. So that's the what. So we have the when and where for the antecedent. We have the what for behavior, like what are they doing? And then we get to consequence.
Yes.
We live here. Yeah.
We live in the consequences, because this is what we can really start shaping and controlling.
Yeah, this is how we gain instructional control, which we've talked about before. This is where that Premack principle also comes into play. That first then that we've talked about before, and probably we'll keep talking about because it's just used so much. You know, it's so powerful. So that consequence is that then.
Yeah, Sabine, I'm so sorry. Did you have a question?
No, I wanted to share an example because
please.
It's very often here. So like a parent will take away the cell phone or the iPad. Immediately the child will start screaming, throwing a tantrum, and the parent will hand back the iPad or the device.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we see this happen very often, and I think that's a perfect example for this to analyze the ABCs of behavior.
Yeah, that is such a good example. So
let's perfect example.
Let's break that down, right? Okay, so what's the antecedent? What do we think?
So like the antecedent is the parent taking away the cell phone.
Yeah, exactly. So took away the cell phone or the iPad or the technology. And then we've got our behavior, which is
screaming.
Yeah. Tantrum behaviors, right? It could be a variety of things.
Whole bunch.
Yeah, things that you can observe, things you can see. So they're just, what are they doing, right? They're screaming and, they're upset, they're mad. And the consequence, what was your example? What they do?
Give back the cell phone or the iPad.
Give it back. Yes. Right. So this is a really beautiful, like, small introduction and segue into reinforcement. And again, we're going to probably do an entire webinar more on reinforcement, but this is just to give you guys kind of like a broad understanding. So that consequence, we're either going to reinforce the behavior, meaning it's going to increase in the future, meaning I take the iPad away, the child screams and cries, and then I give it back. If I give it back, the child is getting what they want. They're being reinforced for the crying. We're accidentally increasing the likelihood they're going to cry again when we take it away. And I know it's hard because, as a parent, you're just like, please be quiet. I've got so much to do, like, please, please be quiet. So, and that's where having a plan in place to change that behavior. So that Premack principle, well, first you do this, then you get it back, right? Because we never want to reinforce the behaviors we don't want to see. We never want to give them what they want while they're screaming and crying. Because they're more likely to do it again in the future. Does that make sense? Did I explain that okay?
Yes, I think you explained that perfectly, because sometimes we end up accidentally reinforcing stuff. There's
all the time.
There's times that we have all done it, whether we meant to or not. Mm-hmm. And there are times where it's like, we can't scream in this environment, and like we have to just quell that behavior when it occurs, but we really want to work to minimize those moments, that when the child is screaming, we're not giving back the iPad until they're doing a task that we want them. So we're reinforcing another part of the behavior.
Yeah, and I think what's hard about this in particular, especially talking to parents that are busy and like probably tired, if you have a plan and you don't give them the iPad back while they're crying, and you say first this and do this, or first do this and then you get the iPad back, and wait for the crying and the screaming to stop, that's kind of time consuming, right? Sometimes, or it'll increase, like the crying will just like get bigger and worse. But that's temporary. Once they learn, they get reinforced for things you want to see. So that first in the Premack principle thing. So the first then, so like, let's say it is, first put your shoes away, then you can come back and get your iPad. Give them something you want them to do first. and then reinforce that behavior. Oh, thank you for putting your shoes away. Now you can have the iPad back. Like once they're not crying, once they're not screaming, they've done something you want, and you're not reinforcing the behavior you don't want to see. So I think it's hard. It's a big ask at first. So it's going to be a couple, it's going to be a couple hard kind of tries, right? But it will decrease because we're not actually reinforcing the crying and everything and something we do want.
And to help train that, so initially it might not be the put the shoes away. Initially it might be like touch your nose, touch your head. Now you get the iPad. Just to build up that momentum, and we call it behavioral momentum, that we want them to be doing things that we want. And if they're following directions, then they're able to access.
Beautiful. Yes. I love that. Yeah. Get them rolling. They can't even think about how upset they are. Touch nose, clap hands, stomp feet, jump up. Okay. Thank you for stopping crying. iPad. Exactly. That's a beautiful example. Yeah.
Yeah. Because as we're going to get into reinforcement and what we're reinforcing, we want to make sure it's immediate.
Exactly. And this is just an overview. I know if this is a lot right off the bat, we'll use more and more examples in webinars to come, because again, this is kind of the base, this is the foundation of ABA. And once you understand the functions and the ABCs, then you can use reinforcement to kind of manipulate what you need to and to promote the behaviors you want to see in your kids, that everyone is progressing.
Yes.
Okay, so this looks a little intimidating, but we're just going to go over positive reinforcement today. That's all we're going to do, because it's what we want to use first. It's what we always want to do. We always want to try to add something to increase what we want. So reinforcement. It's occurred when a behavior is followed immediately by a change that increases. So it's something that we add, which would be giving them the iPad, right? We're adding something that they want. And so they're more likely to do the behavior that led to the iPad again.
Yes. And it's really important to focus on the word immediate. Yes. Because when we discuss reinforcement, it can't be like, oh my goodness, you did such a great job today. Tonight, you're going to get the iPad.
Yeah. And we'll just use first then, right? Let's use the pre-MAC principle. So we'll just grandma's law, right? We'll go with the whole first eat a carrot, then you get a cupcake, right? First you eat your vegetables, then you get dessert. The dessert is reinforcement for eating the carrot, right? Because in the future, when you put a carrot in front of them, they know now that, oh, if I eat this carrot, I get something great at the end. So they're more likely to eat the carrot. That behavior, that B, right, in our ABCs of behavior, that eating the carrot will probably happen again. It's more likely to increase because it's been reinforced with something they actually want. And there's a lot of details of the reinforcement that we're not going to get into today because it would take a while. But yeah, I think that we start here. We're adding something that's preferred and it's going to increase behavior we want to see, because that's what we want, right? We want to decrease the crying and the screaming, and we want to increase some other behaviors. Like, what are we asking them to do? What are we working on? Are they working on setting the table? Are they working on eating their vegetables? Yeah. Are they working on being able to give the iPad back without a fit, right?
Yeah, and just listening and responding to what you're saying. I think that's a big thing that all parents at some point struggle with, that just, following those basic household daily directions and making sure reinforcing those instead of the screaming.
Yeah, reinforcement's extremely powerful because if you have that reinforcement, that's going to, if you're using it appropriately, right? If you're using it, if you understand the concepts, which we're going to keep teaching you, we're going to keep giving you examples, and we're going to learn this together. Once you understand this and use it, it's going to lead to more control over your kids, right? And there's going to be less negative behaviors, and there's going to be more good behaviors. So this is a super powerful tool, and it's just one concept that can change so much. So once we get this and grasp this, and once you see it work, you'll be so excited. You're like, oh my gosh, it does work. If I reinforce this, then this is what happens. I get what I want to see out of my kids, and my kids are more successful.
Yes, that's wonderful. And now we have some beautiful examples of it too.
We do. We have 2 examples for you. All right. So Jerry. So Jerry pushes his little brother on the playground and his dad yells at him to stop. In the future, Jerry pushes his brother more.
Ooh. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming no one wants to be pushed.
No. Yeah.
So I think the first part of this is we need to break down what is the function of this behavior.
It's a really good question. So, I mean, it could be a couple different things, right? I think it would probably be if we kind of go, let's look at them. So we've got attention, avoidance, access, and automatic. I would think because he gets attention from his dad, I would assume that maybe it's attention, right? That's something we could probably infer, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to it.
So yeah, Jerry pushes his brother and his dad yells. So he's gaining attention from his dad. And then because of that, he pushes his brother more in the future.
Right. So it was not, so we assumed that correcting our kids or even yelling at them is going to stop a behavior. But if the function is attention, we might accidentally be reinforcing that bad behavior we don't want to see, right? Because any attention is good attention sometimes with kids, right?
Yes.
So if I keep pushing, Jill over here on the playground because I want my dad to come play with me, like, why is he on his phone over there? Like, come hang out with me. Why is he talking to mom? Like, I want him over here. I'll just keep pushing Jill, you know what I mean? Because he's just going to keep coming over here. And it's not how we think as adults. You're like, well, if we chastise them, if we're like, no, stop, like, we want them to actually stop. But we have to think about that function. So if it is attention, if it keeps happening after you yell at him on the playground like 4 times a day, right? Then you might come to the conclusion that it's attention.
Yeah. So what could Jerry's father do different next time?
That's a really good question. So instead of yelling at him, what do we think? What do you think, Sabine? We could talk with him, right? We could be like, Jerry, obviously we want to tell him that we can't push people on the playground, right? That's number one. But maybe we could use a first then, right? We could use a Premack principle on them. We could say, first sit on the bench for a few minutes, then come back and, without yelling. Or you could just not yell at him. But I don't know how else you would address that. But What do you think, Lauren?
I would think trying to give going over and playing with him when he is demonstrating appropriate. Like, obviously, if he's pushing, we need to give attention to that because there's a safety component at bay. But then once we do that, giving him attention, modeling appropriate play. So maybe going down the slide or tossing him in the air, helping him across, push him on the swing, and then say, oh, I love how you are playing so well with your brother, and then stepping back and really making sure we're giving that reinforcement maybe every 2 minutes and saying, I love how you're playing. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. Engaging with them on the playground and then spading back. And slowly as a parent, you can space that out to make it like from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 10 minutes.
That was perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what you should do. Yeah. So give them attention for the good stuff, right? And just like Lauren said, I know it sounds like a lot up front because maybe in your mind as a parent, the playground is a time you can actually just be alone, but you're not actually able to relax on the bench and watch your kids play if you're constantly yelling at them for pushing other kids, right? So it's a little work up front, like Lauren is saying, but she's giving Jerry attention for the right thing. She's reinforcing him with attention for doing the right thing, for playing appropriately, right?
Exactly.
So whenever it's attention, we have to be careful with how we give it, right? We have to show them you get this attention when you are doing things nicely and correctly or without pushing, right?
Exactly. And just modeling that great behavior that we want them to see.
Right, because last time Lauren talked a lot about how we have to teach kids how to play sometimes. We have to teach them that this is not, you can't just push people. You have to teach them this is how you play with other kids. This is how you talk to your peers, or this is how you share toys. This is how you run around nicely. So
yes, and a lot of times like teaching kids how to play on the playground, like swinging, pumping,
Yeah.
like pumping with their legs. And it's like
Mhm.
showing them how they can interact with it.
Exactly. A lot of kids they don't just know what to do. We got to show them.
Exactly.
All right. So we have another question. Sabine, will you ask away?
Tommy puts away his toys. Tommy's mother praised him for putting away his toys. In the future, Tommy continues to put away his toys after playing.
Love
So,
it. What a beautiful scenario.
Exactly. That is the ideal scenario. Like, I think Tommy is like holding the standards pretty high.
We like Tommy. Tommy's killing it. So Tommy is clearly, been reinforced for the right stuff, right? So Tommy knows that he's going to get tons of awesome praise from mom for putting his toys away, right? So that's probably happened in the past. He's been taught that he gets this praise and this attention from his mom, this good attention for doing something good. So the function, like I just said, is probably what? It's probably
The function is attention.
it's attention, right? Because that's what he's getting at it, right? His mother praised him for putting them away. So the behavior was putting away the toys, and his mom praised him for doing it. The antecedent was probably his mom asking him to do that, because not many kids just put their toys away without being asked. Some might, but probably not. So
a lot of modeling for putting toys away.
Tommy is probably great, but maybe not an angel, right? So, so we've got that consequence that the mother praised him. So he's getting that attention for something good. So in the future, he's going to continue. That behavior increases in the future because he was reinforced with that praise from his mom, that attention. So it's another example.
Exactly. Both are great attention examples. And it's that one's a distracting one because the toys, so initially you think access, but
exactly, right. And I think the attention piece, I mean, from working in schools and talking with parents, attention's a big one. And I would assume, like, at home, especially if you're working from home a little bit, or if there's other siblings, right? There's like, maybe you have a lot of brothers and sisters, kids want attention from their parents or from their siblings. So I feel like this is pretty common. So definitely kind of watch out for the attention piece. Just like Lauren beautifully explained in the last example, we want to give them attention for the right stuff, and a lot of it, an abundance of it. So that we can kind of fade it out, so that we can like work in the other room. Right.
And there
we have to start somewhere.
There's one girl that I'm working with, and the teacher was saying, she's always out of her seat, she's always doing this. And just watching for about 5 minutes, I noticed every time the little girl was out of her seat, the teacher was yelling at her, and that was the only time that she was giving attention. So it's talking about, like, okay, well, when can we give the child attention when we're not always yelling, and that we're reinforcing her in-seat behavior.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to reinforce the good stuff. We have to teach them that when they do good things, they get good things, right? They get something that serves the function of the behavior. So we have to make sure we're giving them reinforcement that also gives them what they want, either access to something or attention, right? We have to make sure we're providing that. And that's why it's so important to understand which of the 4 functions it is. And this was a lot. We went through a lot of things, but we wanted to give you kind of a broad overview of what direction we're heading in. So we're going to talk about all of these things in more detail.
Yes.
But let us know if you have questions. Reach out to us. We're all on Facebook, both of us, Creative Kinder House and Evidence-Based Classroom Solution. So just reach out on Facebook. We have an Instagram as well.
Yes.
But
I look forward to hearing from y'all.
Yeah. Thanks, Sabine, for having us.
Thank you so much, Sabine.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.